Okay, welcome everyone. This is Premier Chess Winter 2021 Adult Beginner class. This is week 8, and we're going to discuss the Stonewall Opening from White. He requested White, but we can also look at Black as well. And what are the advantages of it and the drawbacks? So, does anybody know what the Stonewall Opening is? Anybody familiar with it? Nobody? Okay.
Oh, it's a queen pawn queen four opening. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so give us the basics of it, Michael. What?
well, I played it at a locally, but I
Mhm.
played it incorrectly, and I
Yeah,
want to be really clear on not only did I played it wrong and I lost.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so I played my sequence on white by memory was queen four,
Oh,
pawn
D4, you mean?
e4, right?
Mhm.
Then I sealed in my black bishop with my next move with e3 move,
Yeah.
and then advanced my knight.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Which one? Does knight C3 or knight F3?
I played knight c3.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, tried to advance, tried to bring my white bishop into the game.
Uh-huh.
It just fell apart quickly, and
Okay.
I didn't respond to him preparing both an e5 pawn, and I ended up losing the e4 square.
Okay.
And I also didn't respond with the c3 pawn in retrospect when I was thinking about the game afterwards
Hmm.
when he took c5.
Okay, so let's go over the basics of of this opening. So um to give everyone an idea. So yeah, so this is the basic structure for the Stonewall. So the idea is, do you guys know the idea of a good bishop and a bad bishop?
No.
No. Okay. So who knows here that can give an explanation of what's a good bishop, what's a bad bishop? I saw Monty. You're nodding your head.
Well, I'm ready to be corrected, but it seems to me like there might be two elements to it. One of them has to do with the pawn structure around you.
Hmm.
If your enemy's pawn is blocking or is on the squares of your bishop, uh, I can't remember so much that, but basically you've got freedom to move with a good bishop. And if it's a bad bishop, he's penned in either by your pieces or your enemies. And a good bishop has freedom to move.
Yeah. So the idea of the good bishop and the bad bishop usually only refers to your own pawn structure. So in this position, which would be the good bishop in this position?
The white
D3.
bishop.
Yeah, the D3 definitely. So this doesn't even show black's what black's pawn structure is, but definitely all these pawns are on dark squares, right? So this is wonderful for the light square bishop, and we can also assume that if we lose our light square bishop or it's traded away, the light squares become very weak, right? And the only thing that can protect the light squares is the queen, right? So this bishop is very pivotal and key in a position like this. And consequently, the C1 bishop would be the bad bishop because it is penned in by all of its pawns, right? So it's very poor scope, and it's not really as powerful as a D3 bishop in this situation, right? So that is the one drawback of the Stonewall, is that you always have this bad bishop, right? And I guess before you play E3, let's say you play first move, you play D4, and then before you play E3, maybe you can bring the bishop out and maybe pin the knight if your opponent plays knight f6, and then maybe trade here, and then you erect this structure, and then your bishop is traded away, and so it might be a better that might be a better course of action. So that's one possibility. So this is the idea of the Stonewall. Now, what do you think the advantage of having a structure like this is? What would you think?
Gaining the center.
Yeah, so well, give me more specific. Which squares is does white control very strongly?
E5.
Yeah, E5 especially, right? So the Stonewall for white in this position, white is completely dominating E5, the knight, but primarily the two pawns, right? Very, very powerful. So the thing is, when every time we push a pawn, we create weaknesses, right? So there is, while it's true that we're controlling e5 very powerfully, we have created a weakness, which is e4, right? And so if black, let's say, gains control of e4, maybe he puts his pawns on d5 and f5, and he gains control of e4. Now this becomes what? Anybody know what this is called? This kind of pawn?
Ha-
What is,
Hanging?
no, not hanging. Anybody know? Any idea? Where it cannot be moved forward because there's two pawns that are controlling. There's two that are controlling e4. Becomes a backward pawn, right? Cannot move forward. So if in this position, if your opponent gains control of e4, then the e3 pawn becomes like a permanent weakness, right? And maybe your goal would be to undermine these pawns, maybe through c4, maybe through g4. You would try to undermine these pawns and try to trade those away so that you could push the e4 pawn, and so it doesn't become a weakness anymore, right? So yeah, that's something to keep in mind when you do a formation like this, either for white or black. You're always creating a weakness. Okay, so let's look at this one. Let's see here how this goes on. This is the sample game. Okay, all right. So there's the Stonewall formation, right? Okay, so very powerful control over e5. Okay, there it is. All right. So that's basically stage one. They would say stage one of the Stonewall. Okay, and so maybe possible play could continue. Maybe knight e5. Maybe knight bring the other knight to f3. Another idea is bringing the queen to e1 and then maybe to h4 and try to attack uh, on the queen side that way. And or another idea is bringing the knight to e5, the other knight to f3, and then bringing this bishop to d2, e1, and then h4, and hopefully you can trade it away so it's not just trapped here doing nothing. So yeah, trade away. So there's some ideas you can do, or also actually here, as you can see in this position, is e3 a weakness in this position? What do you think? What do you guys think? Is this a weak pawn on e3? Anybody want to venture a
I
guess?
I don't, I don't think it is. I think I'd move the rook to E1 and then try to advance it.
Yeah. So currently, it's not a weakness because we can advance it to e4, right? Because the f pawn is not an f5, so the black does not have complete control over f5. So he's controlling with the d pawn and the knight, and so we're controlling it with two pieces. He's controlling with two pieces, so therefore we can advance it. Um, but in this position, it would not be a good idea to push here. Why? Why do you think? What could black do if white played e4 in this position?
B would take E4 and fork your bishop and knight.
No, you can just take with the knight and you'll be fine. Yeah. There's another reason why e4 in this position um, is you could say is a slight mistake, not a big mistake, slight mistake. What do you think?
Your two pawns on D and F are no longer protected.
Okay, so the d pawn is still protected by the c pawn and the knight.
Yeah.
But you're right, you're correct in that the f pawn is no longer protected. So then what can black do after e4? What can black do?
Wouldn't it be a better move to move your knight f3 to g5?
To g5. I mean, not so much. You can. I think white can just kick away your knight that way, and he'll be fine. Oh, sorry, black. Black can do that.
but I just mean the attack. You've got the bishop on D3 and you've got the queen on D1.
True. Although in this position, this diagonal is very nicely protected by the knight, right? The knight
Right.
controls G5 and H5. So for that
Okay.
reason, usually in these types of openings, white goes queen E1 and then queen H4, so kind of invades along the dark squares instead of the light squares, right? But okay, so let's go back to the other one. So if E4, anybody see why that is a slight mistake? Anybody have any idea? So actually, Greg, I think he touched upon the answer there. He says the the F4 pawn is not protected. So then what can we do? What can black do?
Take it with the bishop.
Right. The bishop can just come here and capture the pawn,
Right.
right? Easy win
Yep.
of a pawn there. So be careful that when you're advancing pawns, remember every advance creates a weakness. So make sure everything's protected before you. So maybe you go G3 first and then you push here. You can do that. Or maybe you can go knight E5. Now the rook is protecting and the knight's blocking the bishop, and then you can go E4.
But
So the idea is
is
go
that
ahead.
a good idea to move your pawn? I mean, you're making your king less defended.
Yeah, I mean that's just one idea. I mean there's no in this position it's kind of hard for black to take advantage of that of the king this the white king being slightly less protected. So yeah, not that bad, but yeah, maybe knight E5, then we do E4, something like that. So the idea is that you want to get rid of this weakness as soon as possible, right? So this in the Stonewall formation, the E pawn is definitely a weakness. So as soon as you can, you want to get rid of that, right? Okay, so let's go on. This is let's go on here. So here's a possible continuation. Queen E7, knight E5. Okay, possible continuation. So here's another way. Anybody know what this is called? The rook coming here. What is this maneuver called?
Lift.
Rook lift. Yeah, rook lift. Rook F3, B5, rook H3. So again, see the bishop is beautifully targeting the king side, specifically the H7 pawn. So, okay, well, I don't know why he did that. That's a weird move. Now you could just take here. Okay, that's kind of a weird move. No good. Probably better than that would be maybe, let's see here. Maybe something like G6, right? Blocking the bishop. Right, because knight E8 just gives this pawn away, no good. King H8, and now yeah, no good. So now what do you think is a good move here for white? What do you think? White's got a pretty good attack here now.
Yeah, I would go queen to H5.
Okay, let's go queen H5, and now probably the best move for black would be knight F6. Now what do you think? It's a good move for white.
I moved too quickly, I guess.
I mean, I think it's still winning. There's probably a better move than queen H5, but I think it's still winning. So probably white just continues queen H4, and now you're still threatening a nasty discovery there, and there's not much that black can do here. This bishop can't help the king. The rook can't really help the king. It doesn't matter if he pushes the pawn forward. We have bishop takes here, check, and it doesn't matter where he moves, king G7 or king G8. Mate will soon follow, queen H6, and then mate on H8. Right? So that's a pretty irresistible attack. So I think here a little bit quicker of a win, a little bit smoother would be bishop G6 first, check, and now the king moves over. And now how do we finish off black here? What do you think? What do you think?
Well, now if you move queen to H5.
Yeah, now queen H5 is really powerful, right? Now we're threatening mate immediately on H8, right? Very powerful. Doesn't matter what the pawn does. He takes the bishop. He moves the pawn. F7 is still controlled by the knight, so the king cannot escape. So there's no way that black can avert mate, right? The knight can move up to F6. Queen H8 is still mate. So this is mate in one, regardless of what happens, right? So good. So yeah, all right. So let's just see what they wanted to do. Okay, so queen. All right. They want to do a similar thing. All right. So let's go on to the next one. All right. Let's see this one. Stonewall. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this is a Stonewall for black. Let's see how this is a similar thing, right? So we got the bad bishop here, this formation, and has complete control over E4 in this case from black's perspective. Okay. All right. Similar thing. Let's see another one. All right. Okay. So now here's a similar thing. So white has a similar formation. So white has complete control over E4. E5, creating a permanent weakness on E6, and black has a permanent control over E4. But white doesn't have a weakness on E3 because now we have the F3 pawn protecting, right? So a little bit different here. Okay, rook comes up. So yeah, standard rook lift there. Let's look at this one. Okay. All right. So this is with B3 and white trying to fianchetto the bishop. Okay, that's another possibility for white. Let's look at this one. Let's see here. Okay, so here's an interesting. Okay, so this is not the Stonewall, right? He didn't push the pawn all the way. So let's see how this goes on. Okay, it's a little bit different. All right. Wow. So yeah, so this is interesting, right? So now maybe the bishop in this position, now maybe the bishop can come to B7 and have a beautiful diagonal here. So this kind of solves the problem of this bad bishop, right? So this is a nice little solution in this position.
Do you know who won this game?
Who won this game?
Yeah.
Well, these are just like little sample variations. These are not
Oh, I
games.
thought this was lifted from a game.
No,
Sorry.
no. These are just sample variations. So actually here with G4, G5, what is black threatening to do with G5? What do you think?
Looks like he's threatening to drive white off the board.
Yep, he is. So what do you think? There's one move that he's threatening now in this position.
Take the knight?
You mean the bishop?
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing then.
Right? Take the bishop? That's what you meant?
No, but yes.
So okay, so taking the bishop is not really a threat. He just recaptures maybe that way, or maybe with the F pawn, and then he can bring his rook back to F1, and now he's got a little half open file to deal with that he can work with. So that might actually help white. So anybody else? What is black threatening in this position?
The knight, F3.
Knight.
He moves his pawn, G4.
Knight F. No, black's knight cannot move to F3.
No, pawn to G4.
Oh, pawn G4. Okay, so let's see that. So G4 attacking the knight. The knight can simply just retreat, maybe like that, and he's pretty safe.
It's a retreat.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is a gain of space, but there's a little bit stronger thing that black is threatening in this position. What do you think?
I guess it's bishop to C7.
Bishop to. You mean B7?
Yeah, B7.
B7. Okay, so let's see. So yeah. So bishop B7 is a good diagonal for the bishop. Very long, light square diagonal, and attacking the king side. Very good. I mean, not really an immediate threat. It's just that's a good move. I'm looking for a slightly more immediate, stronger move than that. What do you think? You guys want a hint?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, go ahead.
Is the sequence start with bishop, I'm sorry, knight to c6?
Knight to c6. No, actually, knight c6 drops the pawn here.
No, the
But-
black,
Oh, sorry. No, oh, sorry. You meant this side, knight c6.
yeah.
No, there's a stronger one. So
Okay.
after g5, black is threatening to win material actually,
Can I
right?
try it before? Don't tell us yet. I'm not giving up yet. How about moving the pawn to g4?
Okay, so I think somebody said that. One of you
And
said that, and then I think Roy maybe. Then the knight just drops back to d2.
but not threatening the knight, but now, okay, so maybe that wasn't a good idea. I was thinking, let me follow it with the bishop, and the bishop, the black bishop, and the black bishop would be protected by the queen. So then you could take material. I guess you're just trading material. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean bring the bishop here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would just be a trade. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Uh,
these pawns are very menacing, very active and threatening. And so there's something that they're threatening. Do you see? Anybody see? What are they threatening?
Maybe the pawn to f4.
So pawn to f4. So why is that a really good move?
Because it's double protected and
Mhm.
it can take the bishop.
So we're attacking the bishop directly, right? So white can capture on f4, and black can recapture. So now he still has a pawn on f4 attacking the bishop. And can the bishop move to h4? Would that be a good move?
No.
No, yeah, we have double attack. So even though the knight is protecting the bishop, once we have double attack on h5, or sorry, h4, so therefore the bishop will be lost, right? So this bishop is finding very little safe havens on the board, right? So g5,
Yeah, I don't
g4.
think that's a good move because if you move there, then white bishop to h2,
Mm.
h7 is check, right?
That's true. You can take here with check, and then maybe king h7. So yeah, so
Yeah,
then
and then
yeah,
the next move is queen to
right.
g6 check.
It is a possibility. Yeah, it is a possibility. So yeah, maybe that could be a good counterattack, But I'm just saying that's one thing that in this position black is threatening to play. So yeah, okay. So let's go on. Let's look at this one. Let's see what this one shows. Stonewall there. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is basically a double Stonewall. All right. So yeah, basically pretty symmetrical, right? Pretty symmetrical. So there's a couple of things, a couple of strategies you could do. Maybe bring the queen this way. Maybe bring the knight, bring the rook up, rook over, and attack the king. You can also take advantage that the queen is on the c file, so it goes c4, c5, I mean, and with c takes, and then bring the rook over, and then maybe apply more pressure onto c4 and try to trade this away, open up the queen side, and then start attacking the queen. So yeah, those are a few ideas that you can consider with a position like this. All right. Okay, so let's go on to another one. Let's see here. All right, Stonewall. Okay. All right, again, generic. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so now here, okay, so this is an interesting move. So one thing that black can do is if he recognizes that white has the intention of doing a stonewall before white gets a chance to play c3. So now why is c3, now we can see actually why c3 is important, right? Because if he played c3, then knight b4 is no longer possible, right? The c pawn is controlling b4, but also c3 provides escape squares for the bishop, right? Because remember, in this formation, this opening, the d3 bishop is the good bishop, right? It's a powerful bishop. We don't want to trade this away, right? So you want to keep this bishop as white in this position. You want to keep this bishop on the board, right? So black recognizes that and immediately plays knight b4 and tries to trade away this powerful bishop. So that's a really good strategy there. Right. So that's something to keep in mind when you play these openings. You think, what are my opponent's good pieces and bad pieces, and you try to trade away the good pieces.
Why is that? Why is that a good move to move the queen there? I mean, I thought we had said in the past that trading a bishop for a knight for a bishop
Right.
is worth more than a knight.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, they're worth the same, but typically, most masters would try to trade in their knights for their opponent's bishops. So I mean, if you played bishop e2, you're moving the same piece twice. I mean, even though black's doing the same thing, you could do that, and you want to keep your bishop, and then maybe play c3, kick away the knight, and then bring the bishop back that way. so here, yeah, white chose to protect the bishop and then take back with the queen, maybe. So yeah. All right, so that's one idea. Yeah. So keep in mind in these openings, you have to figure out which of my opponent's pieces are powerful and have large scope, and therefore should be traded away. Right. So you got to figure that out. Okay. So let's see here. Okay. So he trades here. So now this pawn is unprotected. Okay. So yeah, so now maybe if he goes bishop, if he moves, let's say moves again, or maybe let's say moves the queen here even, now this pawn is under attack, so you can't really move the g knight to f3. So maybe you go knight d to f3, opening up the c1 bishop, protecting the pawn. Then maybe you plant the knight there, then you bring the other knight, and then maybe you castle, right? Something like that. So yeah, so actually in this variation, capturing the pawn on d4 actually helps white, right? Because remember we said the e3 pawn is the weakness, is a big weakness for whites, right? So he is happy to move the e3 pawn onto d4. So it's very much more pleasant for white here. Okay, is there any question, by the way, before we go on? Am I going too fast?
Why was he a weakness there?
So yeah, so we said most of the time in this situation, right? White has very powerful control over e5, right? But the e3 pawn is a backward pawn, right? I mean, here he can still move to e4, but if black had stronger control over e4, then the e3 pawn would be a weakness, right? So the e3 pawn in this opening has a tendency to become a weakness and a backward pawn. So when black trades on d4, that gives white a chance to get rid of this backward pawn and place it on a nice, replace it on d4, nice strong square. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, let me know if I'm going too fast. All right. Let's go on. Let's see this one. Let's see this. Okay. All right. Basic. So here in this variation, now we have the black doing the fianchetto again. So he doesn't even go d4, d5 to try to control. E4, he goes bishop to b7 and controls e4 that way. Okay. So this is Stonewall against the King's Indian. This is King's Indian defense. So these are against all different types of openings. So here, actually, it might see now. Look at this. So now, actually, it's even possible to even push the pawn now. So you can even get rid of this backward pawn even now. And now in this position, this is a pretty nice position for white, right? It has very beautiful center pawns, very powerful control. And now here, white is definitely threatening e5, attacking the bishop, and these pawns are very nicely situated to dominate the center. So yeah. Whenever you get a chance to rectify your weaknesses like this, you should take advantage of it. So here, okay, here, I mean, he could have just gone e4, and that's a beautiful move, you know. Maybe if black tries e5, maybe we push forward first, you know, something like this. Then we can maybe kick away the knight before we even do anything. And where is he going to go? Maybe here. So now this pawn's getting shaky, a little bit weak. Maybe take, and now push here. Now look at this beautiful center, right? Very beautiful center. And the black pieces are have very little space, right? So beautiful. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Let's see this one. All right. Okay. All right. This is again fianchetto with white on white side. Okay. Let's see this one. That's nothing. All right. Let's go on to the next one here. Okay, this is an ideal. The ideal Stonewall would be there. Okay. Yeah, it's just showing all the possibilities here. You got the rook lift. You got the queen coming in. Although, of course, the knight's protecting h5, so perhaps better would be queen e1 and then coming in on h4. And the attack. I mean, yeah, Stonewall, because of this formation, like look at the black bishop, right? The black lecturer bishop is the dead bishop, is the bad bishop, and the white one is very active. So and even though black's good bishop is on d6, still the scope is very poor. It's not so good, right? Like compare the scope of the black dark square bishop and then the white light square bishop, right? The white light square bishop is a lot better, I would say, right? So there is definitely some advantages to this opening. Played well, you know, it could generate a nice attack on the king, right? So yeah, it looks like an interesting opening to try. All right, so let's see here. Okay, again, wanting to trade away the good bishop. Okay, so he trades away the good bishop. Okay, all right. Yeah. So the attack is here a little bit less threatening because the bishop is gone. And you know, maybe he goes something like bishop here, try to get this knight to e4, maybe f. And you know, the beautiful thing about not, you know, in this position not pushing the d pawn and the f pawn twice is that you can you know, you move this knight, you can kick away this knight with f6, right? So I don't really play this kind of opening, partly because I don't like to leave weaknesses, right? And I'm very sensitive to weak squares, right? Like I think I told you guys this before, that when I play in my games, what I tend to see on the board is squares that I control and squares that my opponent controls, right? So when I create an ideal position, I don't want to create any weaknesses at all, right? So e4 would be a weakness, and the e3 pawn would be a weakness, right? So I try to create, you know, as little weaknesses as possible, and therefore I like to prepare my attacks a lot, right? And so this knight on e5, it looks very strong, but after knight e8 and f6, it can be kicked away pretty easily, right? So yeah.
Why is e4 a weakness? You've got your knight and your queen protecting it.
Well, it can be a weakness, right? Here, white can eliminate it, which would probably be a good idea to do now. But it can be a weakness, right? This pawn is also blocking the bishop, so the bishop is not happy either. So yeah, so I like openings where I don't have dead pieces like this. Bishop to me is like a dead piece. So I would much rather, like I said before we do e3 and f4, I would much rather get the bishop out, trade it maybe for the knight, and then go e3 f4. And now that's a much nicer position, right? That's kind of how I would approach it, because I'm very sensitive to weak squares. Okay, so let's go on this one. Let's see this one. All right, so now got rid of the weak e pawn. Okay. So this is very ideal. Like, this is very comfortable to play, right? Because you have no more weakness on e3, and e4 is pretty well controlled, and then you have a nice situation for your knight on e5, and you could even push on f4, on f5, take here, open up your rook, and yeah, and then maybe bring the knight here, and double attack with the knights, and the bishop's coming, and the other bishop's coming. So so if you just compare the two sides, white has a very nice harmony with his pieces, right? So yeah. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so this is this is against the King's Indian again. So yeah, here again they're saying, so since black did not play d5, does not have that much control over d4 or e4, so now he's basically allowing you to push here and get rid of the weakness, right? Get rid of the weakness. So that's always the thing when you're playing your games. You want to look which of my pieces are weak, or which squares are weak in my camp, and try to eliminate that, right? And then slowly inch your way forward and slowly dominate more and more squares, right? Until you get to the point where your opponent's like, how did I get into a losing position? I don't know how this happened. So yeah, that's my style of play. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go back. So, okay. All right. So here's interesting. So now this is even worse for white. Look at this. This is even worse. He just traded away his good bishop, right? Because he wanted to do this formation f4. All he's left with is a bad bishop, right? So this is a pretty bad situation here. I would not like to play this. So here, okay, here's a nice move. All right, so in this position, c takes d4 is a very nice move, right? Does anybody see why that's a nice move? What do you think? What do you think? Why is taking the pawn on d4 a good move?
Oh, it's doubly protected.
Yeah, it's protected by the e pawn, by the c pawn, by the knight. But there's a reason I see why that's a pretty good move for black. Remember, every time you do a capture, you don't just do it for no reason, right? It's a good idea that if you do a capture, you want it to improve your position or worsen your opponent's position. And I think
Well,
that this would worsen.
Yeah, if the next move is pawn takes
Which pawn?
the
Which
black pawn takes e3.
Oh no, it's white's move here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The pawn just took c takes d4 just happened. So what is white's best move here?
Well, if pawn on e3 takes the pawn, then you open up the file for the queen.
Yeah, that's true, but that would be a slight mistake, though.
Oh,
Taking with the pawn. Why would that be a slight mistake?
I don't know, but I'm sure I'll find out.
Why would that be a slight mistake?
The pawn on f4 isn't protected.
Exactly. Yeah. So now the problem is this knight is still blocking the bishop, right? Pawn is unprotected. You lose a pawn, right? So for that reason, he cannot take with the e pawn. So either he takes here, and that's kind of nasty. And now still the white bishop is blocked by his own pieces, or even if he takes with the knight, you can just you can continue, and now black definitely has an advantage here. So black definitely can go to c8 and try to invade here, bring the queen, something like that. And yeah, this bishop is very poorly placed and blocked by his own pieces. And conversely, look at the beautiful dark square bishop for black is very nice, right? Very good. Pawns on the opposite colors, and is very mobile and very free, right? So big difference here. So yeah, c takes d4 would definitely be a positional advantage. You would yield a positional advantage by taking on d4. Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Let's see this one. All right. Okay. Ooh. Well, I wouldn't take that knight. No, I think that's not a. Why is that not a good trade? Why do you think?
Exposes his rook.
Okay, so it does expose the rook. But another reason is just that when you fianchetto your bishop, this bishop becomes very powerful, right? This is the longest light square diagonal on the board, right? So do you think that it's a good idea to trade this like so quickly? Like uh this is only move 4. And it's not like white is forcing black to trade this bishop, but he's doing it willingly, and it's just not necessary. It's uncalled for. And now look, now you got this fianchetto formation, right? But you got no light square bishop, so it results in a lot of weakness along the light squares, right? So inadvisable, definitely not advisable. So maybe here, so now you could say this pawn is pinned, right? Is pinned to the rook. So you can even take advantage of that and go something like c4, you know, maybe add more pressure onto d5, and yeah. So
How does that help you? Because takes the pawn takes back,
where
knight
where
takes,
where here?
yeah,
Take
no,
yeah,
the
you
other
can
way.
take.
No, the other way.
So no,
White
here
ta-
it's
Black.
black's move here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, black's move. Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, if the black takes here, then that's even better for white. Now look, this bishop controls nice diagonal, puts pressure on the weak pawn, and not only is white controlling e5, but now, maybe he's got to protect his pawn first, but eventually he'll push here and have very powerful control over the center, right? So yeah, when you always think about this, when you fianchetto your bishop, do not trade this away so quickly, so easily, because that would just result in weaknesses around the fianchetto position, and you don't want that. So be careful about that. This bishop is very powerful along the diagonal. The same thing with the dark square bishop on the a1 to h8 diagonal. You got to be very careful, and yeah, keep it there as long as possible. It's a very powerful piece there. All right. So let's see what else happened here. Okay. So everybody's getting the idea, right? The Stonewall, like the advantages, disadvantages, right? Everybody's got an idea. All right, so let's see this one. Okay, all right. Not much there. Let's see here. Okay, typical formation there. Okay, yeah, just showing the standard tactics there. Okay, good. All right, so this is interesting. So here, immediately, oh yeah, so this is a little bit nicer now. So now instead of the knight coming to d7 first and blocking the bishop, so since white traded on d4, now black got rid of his backward pawn on e6, and now he's able to play bishop e6 first. Oh, yeah. Oh, what a situation. No, why would you want a castle? That's weird. Why would you want to castle towards the side where your king is exposed so much? No, not a good idea. All right. So maybe so what do you think? But what's a better move here? So queen d7 and now bishop takes f6 is a pretty good move because now you're creating what are these called?
Double pawns.
Doubled isolated pawns. Doubled isolated pawns, even weaker than just doubled pawns, right? Because why? They don't have pawns on either side to give them protection, right? So even weaker. Okay. And this would be an isolated pawn. So this, if anything, black should seek to castle the queen side, definitely. Definitely not the king side. All right. So give me a better move. So queen d7, definitely a mistake due to bishop f6. So what do you think is a better move? So after white played queen c7, directly targeting the f5 pawn. So what do you think is a better move for black here?
Queen A5.
Queen a5. I think that just drops a pawn for no reason.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so he's targeting the f5 pawn. So what can we do about that?
What about knight to e4? Oh, no. Sorry. Nope,
Yeah, you
nope.
don't want to do
Nice
that.
bend.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
Pawn to h6.
Okay, so you can attack the bishop. That's true. You can do that. All right. So if he takes here, you can take with the queen, and the pawn's protected that way. Or let's say he chooses to, let's say he chooses to go back to f5. Maybe you take here. Um, let's see, what could you do here? Maybe you go g6 and then castle this way. You could do that, or you can go queen d7. But then queen d7 also is, I don't like that because now that puts white white has a nice uh it's like a move to activate the knight at the same time as attacking the queen. So you got to spend an extra move to move the queen back. So probably better would be queen c8, right? Maybe that's a better move. Although now I'm looking at this position. Um, now the knight can come to h4, offer even more attack. So now this pawn is coming under heavy fire. So now g3 is not possible, right? Because the knight can just capture. So what do you think? What else can black do here? What else can black do here? What do you think?
Well, defensively, you can move its bishop back to f7.
Bishop to f7, and we just lose the pawn. What else? Is there any way that we can try to even just stall the loss of this pawn? What do you guys think?
Yeah, you can move the pawn to c5. No, yeah,
Pawn to c5?
yeah.
Okay. All right, you can do that.
At least it puts your
All
queen
right.
up.
Yeah, that's true. You can do that. Maybe takes here, takes, and yeah, the pawn falls again. So what I was thinking was just blocking the bishop, right? With knight to e4. Although that doesn't work completely because now we have f3, and now what are you going to do with this knight, right? So if you take the knight and take the knight on c3, now again this pawn is about to be lost. 3 against 2. Actually, no. Actually, here. That's it. This is interesting now. So now black can actually save the f pawn. What do you think? How does black save the f pawn?
castle, you add a little more protection to the pawn.
Castle, yeah, beautiful. Castle, and the rook offers a third piece to protect. So very nice, right? Um, so yeah, reflecting on this position, this bishop is still not happy. Bishop is basically acting like a pawn, very, very, very limited in scope, right? So basically, this bishop is acting like the replacement for the e6 pawn here, even though there's no e6 pawn. So yeah, so that's the Stonewall for white and black. So what do you guys think? What are your reflections on the Stonewall? Does this look like an attractive opening to play in your own games? What do you think? Would you want to play it or not want to
No,
play it? What do you think?
no,
Why?
I just don't see the tremendous aggressive, there's too many defenses against it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, people who play the Stonewall, they see, oh, okay, I'm going to control a very powerful, I'm going to control powerfully a center square. But of course, inevitably, when you're so aggressive so quickly, you create weaknesses, right? And yeah, so that's kind of why I think I have my style of slow and steady encroachment on your opponent's position, making sure you don't.
Stonewall would be a good idea to play against me, but
Anyone else? Any observations, comments? What do you guys think?
Danilo, what's your favorite opening?
What's my favorite opening? You know what? All right, let me show you. Let's see. So let's see where we're gonna do this here. Okay. All right. So this is a editor. All right. So for white, did I tell you guys that when I was like a teenager, really getting into chess, I was all about attacking, and sharp positions. So I was a big E4 player. I loved E4 because it brought about really sharp opening, and I think a lot of beginners like E4 for that reason. But then I slowly, I'm not really sure when the change happened, that I became I don't know if you could say more mature about chess and about the way I think about it, but I slowly stopped playing E4 because I realized that it was just too sharp and I didn't like it. Right. So then I became more of a D4 player. And I never play E4 anymore. Never. D4, sometimes I play C4. So basically, what I love is called the London system. Anybody know the London system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the London system. So I'll just give you a sample what it looks like. So let's say something like this. Okay, like that. So this, in terms of white, this is the standard position for the London system. The bishop. So you create this pawn chain on the dark squares, but very important is to bring the bishop outside the pawn chain. So remember I said, so for example, in the Stonewall, you do F4, right? But that's why I said before you do E3, maybe you could bring the bishop to G5, trade it for this, and then you do F4, right? E3 and F4, right? That would be a recommendation for me because I'm so sensitive to the fact of having bad pieces, right? So this bishop is now outside of the pawn chain, right? I've closed it with E3, and now the bishop has a pretty nice diagonal. And so because this bishop has a nice diagonal, it would be a good idea for black to want to trade this bishop away, either by knight h5, attacking the bishop, or e6 and then bishop d6, right? So let's say play can continue like this. So in order to avoid knight h5 trading away my bishop, that's why h3 becomes important. So now knight h5 and the bishop escapes all the way on h2. And now you have a beautiful control over this entire diagonal, right? And if black was smart about it, he would say, okay, I got to get rid of this bishop. That's not good to have all these squares in my position controlled by this bishop. So let me trade it away here. And then I'd probably be forced to trade it. And yeah, and that would probably be the most prudent way for black to respond to that, right? But if he doesn't do that, this bishop, let's say sometimes black plays bishop e7. Now, this is a very, very good, very happy position for me. Now I have this good bishop here. This bishop, so you can say in this position I have 2 good bishops. None of my bishops are bad, right? Everybody see that? So this is my goal when I play an opening. Is you don't want any bad pieces, right? And usually, when I'm talking about bad pieces, I'm talking about bishops and rooks, right? The long range pieces. So you want to try to get them on their long diagonals unimpeded, right? Without blocking them with your own pawns, right? So this is the London system, and I love this. And yeah, I've been playing this for a while. Just to let you know, I also like it's called the English opening. I like this. So I think we went over an opening like this before, right? Something like this. This is pretty symmetrical. So yeah, that's also pretty good opening C4. So yeah, so I'm definitely more of a D4 or a C4 player, as opposed to an E4 player. Yeah, so that's me. All right. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that and learned something.
Do you have a plan for next week?
Do I have a plan? I mean, this week was actually it was a request from Michael. So yeah, if you guys have any requests for things that you want to see, just definitely email me.
I like to understand openings better.
You like to understand openings?
I mean,
Okay.
this was very interesting. Asking you I learned more from this opening that you just described.
Oh, the one I
Yeah.
just showed you, the London
Yeah.
system, you mean?
Yeah, I'd like to see more openings.
Okay.
That would be good.
So openings in general.
Yep.
Okay.
Or
yeah,
even some more time on the London system.
you want me to go deeper into that one?
If it's
Yeah,
okay with everybody else.
Yeah.
That's
we can-
fine.
Is everybody? What do y'all think?
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Deeper analysis into London. We can do that. All right. Cool. All right. So yeah, maybe we'll do that for next week. So hope you all have a wonderful night and stay warm. Hopefully winter ends soon. Not soon. Not soon enough for me. and Keith, hope you enjoyed it. And
Yeah, very
maybe we'll see you again next week.
Okay.
That's good. Thanks, all.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Have a good
Good
week.
night, everyone.
Take care. Good night.